Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. I feel like it's been a little while since we've seen you, so thank you for tuning in tonight. I am really excited for this panel of contemporary romance writers. Irene and Nicole and Toni are joining us. Melody has been having a little technical difficulties, so I'm not sure she's going to be able to get on. We're hoping by the end of the hour that she will have joined us for a little while. Hi, Toni. There's Irene. And there's Nicole. Hi, ladies.
Hello.
How are you tonight?
So good.
Very good.
Yeah.
Good. And Nicole did something fun when we were practicing. Where is everybody coming from?
Oh, yeah. I'm North Idaho.
I'm next. I'm from Missouri.
And I'm in Northern Virginia.
Awesome. And I'll just say Michigan because the little itty bitty burg I'm sitting in, nobody has heard of. So there's one four-way stop. So thank you all for coming tonight. And like I was saying, if Melody comes in and is able to get on, then we will have her join us at that time. But we're just going to go forward because we have lots of people listening already. So I like to start with a chance with you guys to tell us about your latest book to come. So all night, I'm just going to try to pick on somebody new as the first speaker, because I know talking first always makes me nervous. So I don't want to do it every time either. But and then the first time I did the panel, I was very bad at it. So I apologize if you feel like I'm leaving somebody out. Nicole, go ahead and tell us all about your book, All That It Takes.
All That It Takes. I have it right here.
Beautiful.
Yeah, you did a great job with that cover. I love those colors. So All That It Takes actually features, it is a standalone, but it does have two main characters that were in All That Really Matters, the book that came out the year before. And it features Val Locklear, who has just had a pretty major move from Skagway, Alaska to Spokane, Washington. She's a single mom, and she has this chance for the first time to pursue one of her lifelong dreams, which is to be a visual storyteller. And so she's really interested in filmmaking and the arts and documentaries. And so she gets an opportunity to work in this mentorship program, but it's going to take a whole lot more than what she first thought. She has to work through some big challenges and some insecurities. And of course, she has a project that she has to decide what that project is going to look like. And it's going to involve community and people. And of course, she's brand new to this area. And so Pastor Miles McKenzie is my hero in this story, and she happens to be renting an apartment from him. And he is kind of in the opposite life path, where his dream, he's been in ministry for a long time and kind of on the short-term missions field for a while, and that's kind of coming to a close. And so while her dream is kind of just beginning, his is kind of in this strange place. And so they have to collaborate together on Val's project while he's trying to kind of limp along this community that he's not even sure he wants to pastor. And so they're kind of forced together. All That It Takes is really about what it looks like for one person to just reach out their hand to someone in need, and how community just starts with one movement forward. And so in the process of building this community and working on this project and telling these stories and overcoming these big securities, of course, they find community in a different sense as well with the two of them, and also kind of this broader sense of how Christ uses people to be the hands and feet in ministry.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
See, that wasn't 10 minutes at all.
That was not 10 minutes.
And if I hadn't already read it, I want to read it all over again. So
I hope so.
yeah, I love the stories. I have to admit the books here tonight are ones I have thoroughly enjoyed. So I really appreciate all your writing. So Irene, what is your newest in the Hope Harbor series? Do you have a copy there? Because I do.
I do too, right here.
Oh, beautiful.
It's beautiful.
So yeah, this is part of the Hope Harbor series. It's book number 8. And if anybody listening hasn't read any of the others and gets scared and think, oh my gosh, they're on book 8, I can't read this book. They are all written as standalone novels. And the continuing character in these stories is the town of Hope Harbor with some other secondary people. But all of the heroes and heroines are brand new in every story. The storyline is brand new. I don't carry plot points from book to book. So if somebody can pick this book up in the middle, at the end, at the beginning, and be right at home. So in this book, this is the latest one here, we meet Christy Reese, and she has traveled to Hope Harbor her life has sort of fallen apart and dramatic changes in her life, and she desperately needs help. And so she travels to Hope Harbor because a man that she knew many years before lives in Hope Harbor, Jack Colby, and she's going to ask him for help. He's her last resort, last chance. So she makes this long trek to talk to him, and he has absolutely no interest in helping her because she hurt him very badly years before. So she's made this long trip, and now she's like, he isn't going to help me. So she goes up to the lighthouse to just kind of think things through, and fog begins to roll in. So she starts driving away, and it gets worse and worse. And she finds this little road, and she goes down, and she finds this little cottage, sea glass cottage, that is empty and open and partially finished. So she just spends the night there. Well, Jack is on the police force in Hope Harbor, and he finds her the next morning and is like, you're trespassing here. And so he has to call and find out whether he should charge her with trespassing or whatever. So he attempts to contact the owners, but the owners are kind of mysterious. This is a little kind of mysterious cottage. It's run really by a property management company, so nobody knows who owns this cottage. But instead of prosecuting her, the owner sends this message and said, would you like to live in this cottage and be kind of the caretaker? Because obviously there's a security issue. Somebody needs to live there. So she does that. And as she stays in town and their paths begin to intertwine, Jack begins to get to know her again and ends up needing her help. So their lives begin to intersect, and he begins to realize, you know what, this is really a different person than I knew years before. And she has changed dramatically. So the book is really about second chances and forgiveness and starting over. And I think that anyone who reads it, and it also explores the question of, can people really change? Is it even possible for somebody to fundamentally change? And I explore that in the main storyline and also in the secondary storyline. And so I think that readers will finish this story uplifted and encouraged and inspired. And I think they will probably need a few tissues in their hand when they read the epilogue. So I hope readers will enjoy this.
I found that with your Hope Harbor books, I always need a tissue.
In a good way, in a happy way.
In a good way,
Yes.
in a very, very good way. And
Yes.
I don't normally like have the sad cry at books. I like the happy tears at books.
Yeah.
I do.
When I was finishing this book, and this has happened to me with some books, not every book, but if anybody has seen the movie Romancing the Stone, it's about a romance writer, and the movie begins with her finishing the book, and she's got this empty box of tissues and she's crying. And that's kind of how I felt with this book at the end.
And I probably should save this for later because we want to know Toni's, but I got to ask, do you know how many books are going to be in the Hope Harbor series, or don't you know yet?
It's ongoing. I know that there will be at least 3 more, at least.
Good.
Good.
That's awesome, because those of us that love Hope Harbor and are all moving there.
I hear that a lot from readers.
It sounds gorgeous.
Yeah, it does.
Who can I call about that sea glass cottage? I'd be fine caretaking that for the summer.
I know, wouldn't that be a great job? What a great job.
Yeah, let me know. Keep me on your list for that.
Well, I'll meet there and have tea.
Okay,
that be
I'll
great?
let you come over. That's okay.
Okay. Oh, Toni, since we wandered down a path, sorry about that. But I gotta tell you, I loved your book. it's every girl's dream. When we were all little, we were really these hidden princesses. So tell us a little bit about how to meet a prince.
So yes, mine's In Search of a Prince. And yeah, definitely the little girl in me was like, what would it be like if you found out you were a secret princess? So I had a lot of fun with that because I got to create a fictional country, Alora Ile, where my main character, Brielle Adebayo, finds out that she is the heir to the throne, that her grandfather is dying, and he wants her to step into his shoes. But she knows nothing about this country. Her mom never told her she was a princess. And so she's like thrust into this world. She goes from being an 8th grade civics teacher to, this is how you rule a country. But this isn't really a spoiler because I do believe it's on the back of the book. The Royal Council decides in order for her to actually accept the throne and end up becoming queen later on that she has to be married first. So hence the title In Search of a Prince, because now she has to find a complete stranger, marry him, hopefully become the next queen. And there's a little intrigue and mystery because some people don't want her in the country because she's American, but she's half American, but she didn't know that half. So it's just all these things that are against her. So there's a lot of things about identity, your self-identity, identity of Christ, how God empowers you to do, the big things, and whether or not you hear him correctly. And of course, the gorgeous dress.
I know. Oh man.
I want to wear
Where do
that
I
dress.
get that dress?
I'm telling you,
nowhere to wear it, but where do I get it?
If I find out, I will so wear it and just do a bunch of reels with me twirling in it on social media.
I would get that dress and then move into Irene's house. I feel like we should just do that together.
You know what? And I think the house needs to be in Toni's country because that country is phenomenal.
That's true. And I guess my character can film it all, she'll do the real girl.
Yes.
That'd be great. Then we could be on Instagram the whole time, and
that's right.
People would want to advertise, so we'd make money. So it'd be fine.
Look at us collaborating right there, all the collaborations. So
okay, good. I don't know why we're on here. See you later. So I have to tell you, Toni, I loved the grandfather. I really, at the beginning of the book, I thought I was going to not like him. I really, because why not? I don't know. But I really liked him. Mm-hmm. Is he based on somebody?
He's not. He totally, I thought the same thing too. When I first created the story, I was like, there's no way I'm going to like this grandfather because he should have told her somehow, some way. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love this guy. And then, there's a certain scene that had me sobbing buckets. And I'm like, I didn't expect to love him so much. So that was definitely fun to discover.
That's an added bonus. So if you haven't read it, let me tell you, he is a neat guy. We all need somebody like him in our lives. So
yes.
But okay, we have a couple questions, so I'm going to ask them. The first one actually is directed to Nicole, but I'm going to ask the other two. I'm going to ask a version of this question. Somebody asks, well, first they say all your book covers are lovely, but how do you decide, Nicole, not to have people on the cover? Which is kind of bucking a trend, really.
Yeah. I don't get the final decision. Yes, that's a good example of one. I've had couples on previous covers on a previous series. But yeah, with my Bethany House books, I just said, hey, I'd love to explore the idea of just a large title with some elements that that kind of play up the story in a unique way. And they were like, okay, let's try it. So really, I suggested it, and then they were game to try. And I feel like people have responded pretty well to them. So yeah.
They do look and really pretty faced out altogether.
Yeah,
none
of that is my doing.
On that way on my shelf at all. No. So.
Yeah, none of that is my doing. They really have a phenomenal design team, and so
Baker Publishing's covers are amazing.
Yeah,
So,
they
because
really are.
Toni, we were talking about the dress. So how much did you have to say on the look of your cover?
That's a great question. That was the one thing I really wanted. I was like, I have to have her on the cover in a beautiful dress.
Yeah.
And I dreamed of having the building in the background, but I didn't say anything because I was like, it was going to be too difficult. So I just kept that in my head. So when they showed me the mock-up and I was like, oh my gosh, like it's literally in the background, just like I pictured. It was amazing. The only thing I asked them to do is add the jewel in her hair. That's it. Like,
Wow, that's great.
I thought it was phenomenal. They knocked it out of the park. I might have teared up again.
Well, if I can, so I was accidentally sent, they always send us the covers kind of for an initial look, and they say, hey, is there anything that, anything small that you want changes on or something? And the gal in charge of marketing at the time accidentally sent me Toni's cover instead of my own, because our books were coming out the same season. And I opened it up and I just started crying. I was like, this is so beautiful. It wasn't even my cover, but it really is. It's like, and so I texted her, we talked, but it really is. It's a lovely cover. I have loved it since the beginning, since I saw it when I wasn't supposed to, but it was a happy accident.
You know what? I have a question about your cover too, Toni, because when I saw it, it was like, this is the most amazing cover. It was just gorgeous.
Yeah.
So do you know, did they actually have a cover model wearing the dress? Did they shoot a cover model, or do you know where, is the dress real? That's where I'm really going. Is the dress real?
And we have to find it.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think so. I think they did some awesome photoshopping. That's me completely guessing just from the mock-up to the actual real deal. But yeah, I feel like if they did do Photoshop, then obviously the dress exists somewhere, right?
If I feel like if we find out they did, we need to link it below with like some percentage off.
Yes.
Some people, you know what I mean? Like link below, but hopefully we don't know if that's true or not.
There's only 10 in stock. Get yours now.
That's how we really do the clickbait for this entire thing. Is we just call out that we're going to link Toni's cover model's dress, and then
Right.
we'll have all the viewers. It's going to be fine. Yeah.
You're fantastic.
Yeah.
So Irene, you have done, you know what? And I had it written down, and it's in the store in my desk. How many books you've written, and how much say do you have on your covers? And this is, sorry, I'm always
so
backwards.
beautiful.
Yeah.
This is, they're all of them. They're just
I
breathtaking.
love that one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I do give my ideas and early in the process. So I kind of explain how I envision it. And in this particular cover that you just held up, the Sea Glass Cottage, it just came out from right from the beginning. It's like they nailed it the first time out. It was just, this is perfect. It's just perfect for this story. But I do offer a lot of ideas. In a previous life, I was in corporate communications, and one of my jobs was as a magazine editor. And so I did covers all the time for the magazine. So I probably offer more input than they really would like. But they're great to work with, and they do listen, and they will even adjust, if it's something like this just doesn't work for me, or here's why it doesn't work. Baker's just been so great to work with.
Yeah.
It seems to be that they're mind readers.
To some degree, oftentimes, I think so.
Yep.
Feels that way.
Okay, so I have another question here. They're asking, I'd love to know the outline of prepping process for each author. Any tips or tricks would be appreciated. So I'm assuming the person asking the question is either really early in their process of writing or would like to be a writer. So let's see, we haven't started with Irene yet. So what would you offer to somebody that would like to be a writer?
So is that the question? I wasn't sure. It said prepping. Is that the word they used? Like how to
Yeah, that's the word they use. So and I was going to ask about research too. So if you want to talk about research.
Okay. So how to prepare to be a writer? It's, is there a way to prepare to be a writer? I don't know. I think everybody learns this process differently. Yeah. My own background, I have a degree in psychology and a degree in journalism. So I have some academic credentials writing related with journalism, but would I necessarily tell someone you have to have that to be a writer? No. I think you know, to be a fiction writer, you have to be a storyteller. And I don't know if you can actually teach somebody to be a storyteller. I think I always felt like it was a talent and it was just something I was born with. Like some people are wonderful artists. I couldn't draw a stick figure, but I paint with words. I mean, that's where my talent, it's a gift. I've always considered it a gift. So I think you kind of have to start with that. But once you really are serious about honing that gift, then there's a lot of ways you can learn to do that. Read a lot, write a lot, go to writing seminars, go to writing classes, talk to other writers. There's just a lot of resources out there now that were not there when I started writing. So a lot of writing organizations. So I think that reading in the genre you want to write, doing a lot of writing, and then continuing to learn, constantly learn. I've written 60 plus books and I learn something new with every book. So it's a mindset of learning, I think.
That makes sense. Toni, what do you got to add to that?
She pretty much hit the nail on the head. I'm a pantser, so I don't plot. I really just let the characters run the show. All I know is who they are, the room, the backstory. I dig into them is what I would say. So if you're a pantser, if you don't like plot, if that makes you want to itch and break out in hives, I so get it. Just, figure out who your characters are and what they have to say, and then they'll tell you the story.
That's great advice too. Boy. Okay, Nicole.
Wow.
Sorry to ask you that one last.
I know, right? So thanks. I had to start first. Now I'm last on this question. No. So one thing I always say I'm a writer by committee. I have a lot of community in my little circle of writer people. And so one of the unique things that I do before the start of each book, I just put one book out a year. And so really each spring for the last 7 years, I have the same group there's 5 of us total of authors that get together, and we spend about 5 or 6 days together, and we each take turns collaborating on each other's plots and kind of working out the kinks, talking through everything. And I'm a verbal processor. I don't know if that's probably has not come across on this thing here. But so just being able, I know I'm a very shy personality, but I think just being able to sit down and kind of talk through the plots and kind of work things out in real time, and we each record the sessions that our stories are going to be discussed. And so that's honestly one of the biggest parts of my process. I'm not a real detailed outliner, but just to be able to collaborate and talk through story points with trusted writers that are kind of like-minded with me is my gold nugget right there. So
awesome. See, and those are 3 very unique questions. And I think Irene's right then. She's like, everybody's process is a little different. So, but any encouragement you can give to somebody new, I think that's great. So those really were good answers. And, Irene, I can't draw either, but I can't write my way out of a paper bag. So I'm still trying to find my talent, I guess.
Everybody has their own talents.
You have some.
I have that verbal thing that Nicole's got.
Yeah. Verbal processing. I like how
that's what we're gonna go with.
Yeah, like what Nicole's got, like it's some kind of an illness or
we're getting counseling, I guess.
I know. We need Irene
I love that,
degree to help us. Yeah.
So, well, thank you for sharing all of those. Those are actually really, truly, even though we end up giggling because that's what we do, I guess. Those are great answers. So yeah, along those lines, and we're going to kind of wander off here. Each of you write contemporary romance, but you're also very, very different. Because of my job, I describe your books to people that are interested in them, and I have to use something different every time. If I would talk all 3 of your books, I would show somebody and I have to do. So how do you keep yourself fresh in this Voice of the Romance group. I mean, it's the biggest fiction group, whether you're talking Christian or secular. You have this huge group. So how do you stay fresh, and how do you stay where you guys are the leaders in this stuff right now? So it's great. And I have no idea who I haven't picked on first.
Toni,
Have I started with you yet?
No, not yet.
Okay, Toni can go now.
See how Nicole just kind of threw me under the bus there.
I
She's
know.
Yeah.
I do. I love to voluntold people. That's how I do things, voluntold.
Sorry.
So that's a great question, because I read Irene and Nicole and probably every romance author out there at least once in my life. And I feel like your personality shines through, I think is the best way to put it. I'm shy and I'm introverted, but on paper I'm not. And it's sort of the same way, like when I have close friends, I talk a lot. Like my kids are always very annoyed at church if I see a friend, because they're like, great, we're never gonna leave. So like writing is my way to, get all my words out. And it just turns out that I can share grace a lot. And I think is the theme that reoccurs in most of my books is someone's always made a mistake and needs grace. And someone on the outside needs to see that everyone mess ups and that grace changes us. And then, of course, add in that I'm a diverse author. I'm one of the few African-American authors. So I think that also adds a fresh twist on things as well. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
That was a great answer. And it is. You're right. Your personality definitely comes through. And it's always funny to me, in a good way, I don't mean to make fun, is when an author who I've read has a book like yours, which is, vibrant and funny and all that. And then you say you're an introvert. And I'm like, well, no, you're not. I just read your book.
Not like I said, when I know someone, like I'm very comfortable and, talk about a minute, but yeah, like meeting new people, I'll sit in the back row, I'll like people watch, and I'm like, do I know anyone? No? Okay, then I'll just sit here and be quiet.
I have a house full of introverts. They do that a lot. And they do the church thing too. Oh no. Lunch is almost on.
Yeah.
So Nicole, how about you? How do you keep it fresh?
I think for me, it's really important to have, like, I kind of have opposite. I'm an extrovert in kind of more of an introvert's world. And so I need to have times where I'm not at my desk and not writing. And so I actually have to make sure that even on tight deadlines, that I'm still saying yes to some social, parts of the world, which can get difficult, because if I'm on this tight deadline, I look at the clock like I don't have time, but then it really affects me in every other way if I don't say yes to kind of just getting out. So even if it's just taking a walk with my neighbor or meeting for a 30-minute coffee break or something like that with a friend, there's just something about kind of keeping that part of me open and kind of receptive, I guess. So that probably sounds like a weird answer, but I think just being able to, I find that the deadlines that I haven't done that, I really struggle post writing deadline. And so when I can kind of have those moments of check-in with people and conversations and social opportunities, I feel like I have just a clear, fresher idea of how to write story. So
interesting, and very, very different answers. I like that. And we kind of go back to, how do you prep to be an author? And you guys are doing it your way. So Irene, how about you? Like you said, you've written over 60 books. So and they're all good. I'm going to fangirl for a second there.
Well, on the on the spectrum of introvert extrovert, I would be back with Toni in the back row because that's just my personality. I'm not a hugely extroverted person, but I think that when you're writing a book, you can be a whole different person sometimes, and you can present other kinds of other new people in new circumstances that allow you to sort of be in those situations, even if you've never been in them.
Yes.
So I do think personality, your personality and your background really shine through in your writing, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, it doesn't matter. That comes through in the writing. And I think that, you know, it's probably what people call voice. I mean, I don't really know what voice is. We always talk about voice. What is voice? It's the way you present yourself on the page. And I think it has a lot to do with your personality and your background. And in terms of staying fresh, it's interesting because I think you could take the three of us and give all of us the same real general story outline. And you would come back with three completely different books. And that's because of the way that we view the world and through our lens. And so that's, you don't really work to be fresh because it's a reflection really of your own background and personality.
True. Now, let me ask you this, and this is, do you guys have trouble writing the opposite of what you are? Like, Nicole, do you have trouble writing introverts? And do you, Toni and Irene, have trouble writing extroverts? Because I feel like my tendency would be to make them so extreme that they wouldn't be believable and kind of ridiculous because, well, that's why I don't write.
Well, so I'll take that one. So in All That It Takes, actually, I have a pretty introverted main character, my heroine, Val, and I struggled quite a bit. I actually thought going in, I was like real confident that I knew how to write this character. Like 99% of the people in my world are introverts, kind of have some of the same qualities that I wanted to make shine from the page out of her life and just how she thinks. And there was one, I have weekly chapter critiques with my two writing sisters, Tammy Gray and Connie Cassette. And there's this one chapter, it's a pretty significant chapter in the book, and comes out midway. And I wrote it, and I remember feeling really good about how I wrote this chapter. And I read it, like, that's always the first sign that probably something's wrong, by the way. And so I read it to them, and Connie very sweetly, in her very kind way, goes, Nicole, your character was you in that scene and not your character. she's like, you responded to that event the way Nicole Deese, extrovert, would respond to that event. She goes, I would never in a million years do that. And I was like, oh, okay. Oh. So had to go back and kind of like think through, like, it was kind of this crisis moment in the story. So, you know, my MO was to ask a million questions. And she's like, I would never ask a million questions. I wouldn't even ask one question. I was like, oh, so it was kind of like a reality moment of like, maybe I don't know how to write her the way that I thought I did. And I need to kind of, so all throughout, I kind of had checks and balances of like, would you say it like this? Or would you think this way? Or, you know, so that was actually really helpful. By the time the book was over, I felt like I finally had a handle on her after many drafts, but it did take many drafts for me to write her, not in my state of mind. So.
How about Toni or Irene? Do you guys have trouble writing introverts, or do you have enough in your life that it's kind of second nature?
I think for me, I don't want to say second nature, but I observe a lot. I people watch a lot, and I think that helps me write characters that aren't like myself.
Yeah.
I also feel like introverts collect extroverts. Well, it's probably the other way around. Extroverts collect introverts.
Yeah,
and so,
sorry.
Like, we do.
So there's always an extrovert, you know, you're like, oh, I know exactly what this person would do.
Now, Irene, how about you? Have you been writing a lot of extroverts lately?
Well, I write a variety of characters, and it's, you know, it's kind of this thing. There's a lot of talk now that writers should only write what they know. there's been pushback on, don't try to go outside your realm of experience and create a character that you don't know anything about. I see that from one perspective, but we're writers. It's kind of what we do. I mean, we're trying to present a broad view of the world and with many different kinds of characters. And I think there's a lot of empathy that you have to employ and a lot of putting yourself into the shoes of that person and trying to understand what they're doing or what they're going through or what their personality is, and then portray that to the reader. So, if I only wrote books about people like me and only portrayed people like me, it would be so boring. I mean, I only have one book, and even that probably wouldn't get read. So, I mean, I write suspense as well. So I do first person into the head of the villain. So I don't know any people who do those things, but if you put yourself in and try to do a psychological dive into whatever the character is, I don't find it all that difficult to try to imagine. I do the what ifing, and I establish a strong background for the characters. So I know what made them the way they are and where they came from. And then you just kind of put yourself, it's like an actor or an actress does when they play a character. You put yourself into that person and become them as you're writing. So I don't really struggle too much with writing a variety of characters.
Interesting. So that leads to the question is, and I've heard that too, and I understand what they're trying to say when they say you should write what you know. I understand what they're trying for, but I disagree with them because, you guys do the research for it. Now, I also think you need to do it sensitively. I mean, you can't, write Dutch people like some people would like to write Dutch people. I'm Dutch, so I can say that. But so how do you do that? I mean, we were talking extrovert and introverts. I'm talking now, different, we can, what, we're going to say it, we're going to, different races. You talk about different countries, you talk about different neighborhoods than where you live. I mean, you guys don't set your books where you are. So how do you do that? How do you write what you know while expanding what you know? I think Toni.
That was a
Sorry,
great.
I should keep better track.
No, that's okay. That was actually I like how you said that. How do you write what you know by expanding what you don't know? And that's one of my favorite things about writing. I love to travel, but I don't always have the funds to travel. So being able to armchair travel, set the book in a different place I've never been in, is my way to do that. And I do it with, lots of research, whether it's watching movies set in that area, talking to people who live there, Google, like I Google everything. And it's ridiculous, like the things you Google. Today I was Googling fly fishing, but like you just do the research because you don't want someone who has that background to read it and be like, they know nothing.
Yeah.
Like that's like the worst thing. Like you failed as a writer. I saw a review of my book one time that said, oh, it's obvious she did blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I researched. So I think that loving the job, wanting to portray it accurately and authentically, and being able to, put the story theme across means you put in the time to research until you don't even know what you're researching anymore. In hopes that somehow, some way, someone will believe that they could actually be a secret princess and go to a country and rule a kingdom. I don't know any princesses. I've never stepped foot in Africa, but I did get a lot of help with the story from people who lived there. I found an article about a woman who actually did find out she was a princess because of DNA tests. I mean, like, so these stories aren't totally made up.
Yeah.
So
I love that. That was a great
I do
answer.
too.
Yeah.
Does either one of you want to add something to that? You guys do the research, interview, make things up? Sorry.
All the above.
Yeah, really. I mean, the research piece, whatever book you're writing, I think is really critical.
Mhm.
More so with some books than others. It depends what you're writing about. But, this this book, for example, I didn't have to do a lot of research for, because the hero in this book is a police officer, and I've done lots of research on law enforcement for my suspense work. So that book didn't require a lot of research, but generally I'm researching almost on every page. I mean, it's just, there's something that comes up. It's like, I don't know for sure about this. I'll have to find that out. And even with Hope Harbor, the very first book in the series was about the heroine was a cranberry farmer. I know nothing about cranberry farming. So I had to contact Cranberries Growers of America, and they hooked me up with a cranberry farmer in Oregon who was invaluable in helping me. Because, even though the stories we write are fiction, most the professions we write about are not. And so you want to portray it as accurately as you can, and any other factual material as well. There are a lot of facts in a fiction book, and you want to try to do your best to get that right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Honestly, when I read the first one, I thought you knew all about cranberry farming.
See, the research pays off.
Well, now she does. Now she does know all about
now
it.
I do. Here, I'll tell you, you know what? I'll tell you one little fun fact I learned. If you want to know if a cranberry is ripe, see if it bounces. There's your trivia for the day. If it's ripe, it bounces.
There's my fact for today. Yep.
That's awesome.
So if it bounces, it's not right.
No, if it bounces, it's ripe.
It is right.
Yeah.
What does it do if it's not right?
I don't know, but it.
I'm sorry, that just cracked me up.
So
awesome.
You know what? Okay. But that just goes to show that when you research, you find out huge amounts of information, and you use a tiny little percentage of it. That's all you can use in a book, because you don't want to do a data dump, but you have to use enough to let people know that you've done your homework and you can talk credibly about the subject.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, like, that's really what it's about, is making sure that you're building that credibility, and so if you can show something right on the front end, like, oh, this author knows something of what she's talking about, like, the believability factor will continue to grow as they're, so even if you do miss a small thing, or maybe don't elaborate as much, you have already proven yourself as a credible author. And I think that's really what a reader wants to know. Like, once you kind of get through that first filter, so it, this is what I've heard once, like, then they'll trust you, but if you have a lot of things that don't sound quite right up front, you're probably going to lose that reader, within just a few chapters. So
interesting. Well, thank you. That's one of those things I always hear, and like I said, I understand what they're trying to say, but I'm like, just read the fiction, And to me, when it's not well written, like you said, you lose the reader anyway. So I guess I never worried about it, but anyways, there you go.
And I think all of us could probably have Google as a co-author,
right.
on our books. Like, that's
probably thanking them in the back.
So, yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Google, for 2,900 searches for this story. So,
2,900.
Yeah, something. Roughly.
A few more, a few less. Who's counting?
Yeah.
So, Irene, your Hope Harbor series has become very popular. Now, it's very different in some ways from your romantic suspense. So how do you write both? I mean, you usually have one of each book, romantic suspense and then a Hope Harbor contemporary romance come out in the same year. How do you keep that straight?
Well, first of all, I alternate the genres. So I'm not one of these authors that is writing 2 books or 3 books at the same time. I'm very linear. I write a book, I finish it, then I move on to the next book. And it's actually a really good combination for me, because the suspense novels tend to be very intense, and like I said earlier, I do these deep character dives into many characters, including the villain. And so by the time I finish one of those high intensity books, I am really ready to go to Hope Harbor, which has plenty of drama too, but it's just not of the life and death variety. So it's been a great combination for me. And both of the books have romance, so that's a common element. But it's a little bit different approach. The suspense novels, as I said, are more intense. There's a lot more clipped dialogue, clipped language. The time frame tends to be shorter because the action typically happens over a shorter period of time. So there's a little bit of a different technique to writing the two books, but there's a lot of common elements as well. But it's just a nice balance to go back and forth between the two.
Interesting. So Nicole, your books, they're obviously contemporary romances, but you always have this thread through them that has a little bit more serious message to it. So do you have an idea for that message, that theme, or do you do the story and it kind of like, I can't remember which one, your characters tell you what to do. I don't remember which one of you said that. So
yeah,
but.
Toni said that, but yeah,
Okay.
so
Sorry, Toni.
I don't necessarily, I feel like it's like the chicken and the egg, which came first, the characters, the romance, or the message, right? But I think that for me, sometimes there's a subject that I feel like I want to explore, but I really can't even get to the depth of what that exploration is going to look like until I build my characters and really like what's their journey and why. Like if I just tried to start with the theme or start with the message, I think it would be, it would feel like you're reading an agenda, for a book instead of like a story that your characters are going to naturally and authentically evolve, into. So I kind of usually have some rough idea of something like, and Before I Called You Mine, I wrote about adoption. I knew that I wanted to write this story that had a pretty big international adoption theme and vulnerable people groups. And so I knew that was there. I knew that it needed to be a romance that was going to be the conflict of this, adoption that had started. But I really had to let those characters kind of tell the story of how that was going to actually, how the story was going to be, arced, and how those characters were going to evolve with that story and what that conflict was really going to look like, before I couldn't just put that on page. Otherwise it would not have felt authentic in any way. So so I really let them help me tell the story, and a lot of times even the message that I think that's going to be there will change and evolve, especially by the next couple of drafts. So yeah.
Interesting. Thank you. And then Toni, you have told me you love to write romance. You're not interested in any other genre. You want to write romance. I love that. I love somebody that knows their mind. So what is it about romance that makes it so special to your heart and to your writing?
Ooh, that's a good question. So, beyond that, happy feeling you get from romance, I like the fact that romance always overcomes something. Whatever it is. And it's such a perfect picture of our life that, in Jesus we'll overcome, sin, we'll overcome whatever heartache we've been through, whatever wounds of the past. And I like just reading it over and over and seeing people triumph and, fall in love and know that that's their person and they have someone to walk the road with, until Jesus calls us home. So
Yeah.
I think that's really what it is just seeing them succeed over and over and over again.
That's beautiful. I'm going to need a tissue now. So,
happy tears, right?
right. Happy tears. Always happy tears. So I was seeing something on Facebook, I think it was today, and I thought it was interesting because I know I asked you in the list I sent you about your favorite authors or books, but they were asking if you could go to dinner with one author and ask them anything and have them tell you whatever, what author would that be? Nicole?
No.
Should I go somewhere else?
Oh, I'm on the spot. What'd you say?
Should I tell you who I'd go to dinner with?
Yeah, you go. Yeah, you say it. You go.
Okay, I'll go first, and then you guys got some time to.
Okay.
I've always wanted to meet Randy Elcord because he's the reason I have my job at the bookstore. He doesn't know that, but
That's
so.
awesome.
That's awesome. He spoke at my church a couple years ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So someday, he's always at an event like the year before I go. Like in 2018, he was at ACFW, and I went in 2019. Perfect.
Yeah. I have met Robin Jones Gunn just one time. We shared an elevator and I was like so starstruck. I did not even have words, which is very rare. But when I was about 10, I wrote her a poem and a letter, you know, and she wrote back. And I still have that letter, and so it's just so precious to me, and I keep it in my writing desk. So I think I loved the Christy Miller series. That was really the series that made me fall in love with this whole idea of romance and of Christian romance, and that was totally kind of my world in growing up in youth group and growing up in the church and all that. And so it just really, I think that was kind of the beginning of a seed that that grew for me in Christian romance, but then also just as a writer. So I think to go to, and I know she used to live in Hawaii. I don't think she lives there anymore, but if we could have lunch in Hawaii, then that would even be the better, you know.
Okay. Hey, if we're wishing, let's go for that.
You know, I feel like why not be extra when we all can? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is just a dream.
I agree. So how about you, Toni? Who would you have dinner with?
So that's a really hard one because there's so many authors I love. But I'm going to see Nicole in August, so I'm not going to say her. I would pick Becky Wade. I loved My Stubborn Heart when I first read it, and I've been like a crazy Becky Wade fan ever since. And she lives in Texas, my home state, and I'm like, why can't I get there and somehow meet up? Like, it's so yes, I would pick her definitely.
Texas is a very big state, so I'm surprised you don't run into each other more often.
Well, now I'm over here in the East Coast in Virginia, so it makes it more difficult.
Yeah, that is make it difficult. So, because I remember we were on vacation one time and we were in Europe, and we mentioned, you know, we lived in Michigan, and the guy said, "Oh, I have relatives in Detroit. Do you know them?" No.
Yeah, Texas is huge.
Sorry. Irene, who would you have dinner with?
That is a really hard question.
Oh, isn't it?
Yeah. And, you know, I think my preference would be to have a group of authors to have dinner with, because so much happens in an exchange among more than just two people. Two people's
Very
great.
true.
But if you could have like 6 or 7, probably no more than that, because then it starts to break into little clusters. But 6 or 7 people that have been at the business, I would say, a long time, and probably have a lot of wisdom to impart. People who have maybe not just written the books, but maybe also branched out, and they have maybe done some movie deals, and maybe people that have agents and people who don't have agents, and people that are really savvy in the business. And I just think a panel or a larger group would be better for me than one author. I mean, one author would be fine, but I like to absorb from many people, and once you get a dialogue going in a group like that, I think you could learn so much. And it really wouldn't matter so much who they were. It would be the experience level represented, because I just like to learn, and I would love to see people who've, you know, done a lot of different things in the publishing and writing field.
Interesting. I think that's cheating, but we'll let it go.
Hey, if I'm having lunch in Hawaii, then she can have a group. That's all.
Okay. Okay, you're right, Nicole. I'm sorry. I shouldn't even brought it up.
There's no rules here.
You're right. We have had a little chaos tonight, but that's all right.
Yeah.
So we only have a few more minutes. Don't cut yourself short, okay? But I'm going to ask a twofold question because I want people to know. A, what's up next for you? You know, if you know title and can share it, great. If you can, whatever you're allowed to or comfortable sharing, please do so. And where, besides bakerbookhouse.com and the store itself, can they find you and your books? So Facebook, Instagram, your blog, whatever you want to share is great. So Irene, let's go with you first. Why not?
Okay, so the Hope Harbor series, as we already talked about, will continue. Those books come out every April, and next April will be the next one, and it's called Windswept Way. So that's book number 9. And then this fall in October, I will finish off one of my suspense series. It's the Triple Threat series, which featured 3 sisters, and the book is Body of Evidence.
Awesome.
And then next fall, I will be launching a new suspense series. So I have books planned out for the foreseeable future. And in terms of finding me, my website's great for just general background information and for a book list and that kind of thing. But where I really hang out and interact with readers is I am on several social media, but I really prefer and hang out a lot on Facebook.
Okay, awesome. And I'm going to assume that your Facebook pages are just your author names.
Yes.
If it's something different, let us know. That's fine too. So, Toni?
Okay, sure. So next for me, I actually have a love-inspired book coming out end of June called An Unlikely Alliance that I'm really excited about because it features some characters from my first love-inspired book, An Unlikely Proposal. And then I'm super, super excited because Iris from In Search of a Prince is getting her own story. Her story is called To Win a Prince. That comes out September 13th. And that cover is beautiful too. She's in a gorgeous dress and it's all sassy Iris on the cover, so it's awesome. And then in Christmas, I will have another love-inspired book coming out.
Nice.
And you can find me on ToniShiloh.com. All my social media links are on there as well. And I prefer to hang out on Facebook and Instagram. I'm author Toni Shiloh on Facebook and just plain Toni Shiloh on Instagram.
No plane to that. Awesome. And I am very excited to hear about the next one in the Prince series, even though you never did. Are you naming the series with book 1 or 2, excuse me?
No, they're considered standalones.
Oh,
so
okay.
No series names.
Okay. Nicole, what's up next for you?
I have a new 3-book series coming out through Bethany House, and I just write, unlike these 2 ladies, I only write 1 a year, so that's all I have in me is just 1. But so my first book 1 will come out in April, and I won't share the title yet because I haven't shared anything about it, but it is loosely connected to a publishing house that I have made up in San Francisco. And each one of the books and each one of the main characters kind of have a loose connection to this publishing house. And the first book, I will say, is set in Port Townsend, Washington, which is up in the Olympic Peninsula, almost to Canada. It's very, very north on the western side. And it was a beautiful setting to research. I got to go there with my husband, and it will be a story that has more mystery than I've ever written, and has this kind of writer, editor vibe, and also a second chance love story with lots of angst. So I will say that.
Awesome. 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 Well, you guys are going to keep us all very busy. I'm looking forward to all of them. Any of the Baker Pub books are available at bakerbookhouse.com for pre-order as fast as we can get them on the website. So make sure you check them out too. So ladies, thank you. This was so much fun. I love getting to know each of you and talking to you about all your books. So thank you all for joining us, and
Thank you.
we hope to do it again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And you guys have a good night. Bye, all.
Bye-bye.